chunks of concrete crashing onto empty seats, a roof tearing open mid-blizzard, hundreds of millions spent, only to end in embarrassment. This isn't a disaster film. It's the true story of Montreal's Olympic Stadium, one of the most ambitious architectural dreams in Olympic history, and one of the costliest failures of any public project on Earth. It was supposed to be Canada's proudest moment, a futuristic stadium that would make history. Instead, it became a case study in what happens when ambition outruns planning, when politics, pride, and pressure collide. Nicknamed the Big O, it was meant to symbolize unity and modernity. Instead, it became the Big O, drowning Quebec taxpayers in billions of debt. Nearly 50 years later, the stadium still has no permanent tenant, but continues to rack up costs. How did something built to inspire national pride become a global cautionary tale? Let's step inside this billion-dollar disaster and find out what went wrong. When Montreal won the bid to host the 1976 Summer Olympics, it was a moment of national triumph. The Games hadn't been held in North America since Los Angeles in 1932, and Montreal was eager to prove itself on the world stage. Mayor Jean Drapeau, fresh off the success of Expo 67, saw the Olympics as its next great legacy, a chance to transform Montreal into a global capital of architecture, art, and athletic excellence. Central to that dream was the Olympic Stadium. This would be no ordinary venue. Drapeau envisioned something iconic, a stadium that would rival the Colosseum or the Eiffel Tower in cultural impact. For the design, he turned to famed French architect Roger Taillibert, celebrated for his curving, biomorphic forms and experimental use of tension-based structures. Taillibert's proposal was dazzling: a 56,000-seat amphitheater with flowing concrete ribs, a 175-meter incline tower, the tallest of its kind in the world, and a retractable roof suspended by steel cables. To turn this futuristic vision into reality, Taillibert worked closely with a Franco-Canadian team of structural engineers, including experts from Lavalin. Their task was to develop the complex rigging, custom molds, and load-bearing systems needed for the stadium's sweeping concrete forms and inclined tower, while also contending with Montreal's extreme climate. On paper, it was a futuristic marvel. In reality, it was a logistical nightmare. The entire project had to be completed in just 3 years, an impossibly tight deadline for such a complex design. Still, Drapeau pushed forward with total confidence. When asked about the rising budget, he infamously replied, "The Olympics can no more have a deficit than a man can have a baby." That quote would become a punchline for generations.
I have absolutely no reason to believe that anything can happen to stop this. We will be ready on time as usual.
The original budget of the Olympic Stadium was set as $119 million, about $590 million today. But almost immediately, that number began to unravel. Quebec in the 1970s was gripped by intense labor unrest. Dozens of rival unions vied for control of construction sites. Strikes, walkouts, and even instances of organized crime interference plagued the project. Some days, fewer than 15 workers showed up on a job site that needed hundreds. Design complexity added to the chaos. The stadium's curving concrete forms required custom molds. Its tower couldn't be built using traditional cranes. It needed entirely new rigging systems. Meanwhile, the retractable roof design was so far ahead of its time that the technology to build it didn't exist yet. The roof system had to be redesigned mid-project, adding years to the timeline. As the clock ticked toward the 1976 Games, pressure mounted. With each passing month, Montreal's Olympic dream began to resemble a financial time bomb. And when the world finally tuned in to watch the opening ceremonies, what they saw wasn't a finished stadium. It was a construction site dressed up for television. So how did things get even worse after the flame was extinguished? The Olympic Games ended in August 1976, but the construction nightmare was just beginning. In early 1977, the Quebec provincial government approved a revised plan to complete the stadium and its tower, allocating emergency funds to restart construction immediately. The tower, the roof, all the signature engineering features meant to define the stadium's brilliance had been delayed. Montreal was left with a half-finished colossus, and no choice but to finish what it had started. It took 11 more years to complete Roger Tailliber's full design. The tower alone, a 574-foot structure tilted at a 45-degree angle, was a marvel in itself. But building it required specially designed cranes, massive underground anchoring systems, and a structural balancing act that stretched the limits of 1970s engineering. By the time the tower was completed in 1987, costs had ballooned and public faith had evaporated. Once the tower was done, attention shifted to the long-awaited retractable roof. The vision was grand, a 52-segment Kevlar membrane that would open and close like a giant flower, suspended from cables attached to the tower and operated by a complex winch system. The cost to install it, $33 million, around $71 million today. But almost immediately, it proved to be a disaster. The roof jammed in cold weather, tore under wind stress, and malfunctioned during even moderate rainfall.
Tell me what you think about the Olympic Stadium?
It's a big toilet.
At one point, it ripped wide open during a snowstorm, forcing event cancellations and triggering public panic. Within a few years, the retractable system was deactivated and the roof was permanently shut, rendering one of the stadium's key selling points completely useless. Still, the failures didn't stop. In 1991, a 55-ton concrete slab broke loose from the roof's support structure and crashed down into the empty seating bowl. If the stadium had been occupied, lives would have been lost. Emergency inspections revealed serious flaws in the concrete joints and steel support trusses. Entire sections of the structure had to be reinforced, and portions of the building were closed off for months at a time. By 1998, the Kevlar roof was scrapped entirely. A new fixed roof made of Teflon-coated fiberglass was installed at a cost of another $33 million, around $55 million today. This new version promised durability and weather resistance, but it too was ill-suited for Montreal's heavy snowfall. In winter, workers had to manually shovel off snow to prevent cave-ins. Major events, including baseball games and concerts, were frequently canceled due to structural risks. The interior of the stadium was equally problematic. Sound echoed uncontrollably, making music events nearly unbearable. Seats were far from the field, especially for baseball, creating a distant and impersonal experience. Fans routinely complained about poor visibility and lack of atmosphere. Despite later efforts, premium features remained limited. Fewer than 400 premium seats were added, and only around 30 suites were ever installed, none of them comparable to modern-day luxury offerings. There were also only 2 video boards, each roughly 30 feet wide, mounted near the ends of the stadium. No central screen, no ribbon boards. For fans used to crystal-clear replays and immersive AV, it felt like stepping back in time. During its prime, the stadium did host major events, World Series games in 1981 and 1994, a papal visit by Pope John Paul II, and concerts by acts like Pink Floyd and U2. But even those moments couldn't mask the financial rot underneath. Maintenance alone costs around $17.8 million annually. By the time Quebec officially finished paying off the original Olympic debt in 2006, the total cost had reached $1.3 billion, more than $2 billion in today's terms. And yet, the stadium was still far from stable. In 2023, officials announced yet another round of renovations. The roof would be replaced once more, this time with a $775 million, $870 million today, fixed structure made of composite panels. Engineers insist this version will finally solve the structural issues, but public skepticism is high. Demolishing the stadium isn't off the table, but it comes with a projected cost of up to $1.78 billion and environmental concerns about concrete waste. For now, the structure will remain, patched up again, waiting for an audience it no longer has. Billions were spent, the debt was paid, and yet, there it stands, empty, crumbling, and still draining public money. How did it come to this? The story of Montreal's Olympic Stadium is, at its core, a story about unchecked ambition colliding with political denial. What began as a symbol of national pride quickly unraveled into a multi-decade financial sinkhole. And at every stage, from the unfinished games to the malfunctioning roof to the costly makeovers, it became increasingly clear that the project's central flaw wasn't concrete or steel, it was hubris. The funding breakdown tells its own story. The original stadium cost, $119 million, ballooned to $1.3 billion over 3 decades, much of it financed through high-interest municipal bonds. Adjusted for inflation, the total is over $2 billion. That includes $775 million in interest payments alone, paid by Quebec taxpayers over a 30-year span. The recent roof replacement was also publicly financed, with $775 million, $870 million today, approved by the provincial government. There were no major private investors. This was a fully taxpayer-funded effort from start to finish. Meanwhile, the stadium has no permanent tenant. The Expos left for Washington. The CFL's Alouettes moved to a smaller, more intimate venue. The stadium now hosts the occasional trade show, concert, or soccer match, but nothing regular. Yet, it still costs millions per year to maintain. And yet, it stands. The 175-meter tower, once mocked, is now an observation deck offering panoramic views of the city. Tourists still visit. School groups still walk through its cavernous halls. And despite everything, the debt, the dysfunction, the danger, it still feels like something important. Because sometimes, a failure this massive becomes more than a failure. It becomes a monument. Montreal's Olympic Stadium may never be loved, it may never be fixed, but it will never be forgotten. Ready to be amazed by the next groundbreaking construction project? Click on the video now and dive into a world where engineering and imagination collide. See you there!